it helps at all, the private road ordinance, at least with our comments on it. You could ignore that if you want for now, but on page 16, remember this, because there were so many things that were sent from us and from the township. 17, 16, 17, 18. '21, '22, and '23, if that helps at all.
Well, who wants to start this? I guess I'm curious, why does the township want to amend the changes to existing ordinances?
Basically, our private road rules were probably pretty weak when it came to grade, driveway width, passing lanes, and unobstructed areas above the paved area. And we didn't have any of that in our private road rules, and most private road rules do, especially in a township that's more rural like ours. So no matter what was going on otherwise, those needed to go in our private road rules regardless. And they pretty much mirror, they're pretty close to the private road rules I was used to when I worked in Ada Township. And it is strengthening our private road rules, and that's on the agenda at the Planning Commission meeting tonight at 7.
Correct.
And why would you change, why are you changing rules, I guess?
So like I said, our rules weren't, our private road and private driveway rules, I don't even think we had any driveway width. And that's one thing that needs to be added to this is a driveway width for a single driveway, 16 feet. I don't know if Chris told you that we will add that tonight.
Great.
So we never had.
For one single family
For
dwelling?
once, and we didn't have any kind of stipulation of what the width would be on a single family driveway. And I mean, 16 feet is probably wider than most townships would require. But you know, that's what you guys said, IFC. Like I said, I'm taking a lot of the IFC stuff and putting it right in our private road rules. Our private road rules have 3 pages on trees you can't disturb, but they don't have a whole lot on grade, width, unobstructed, all that good stuff. So we felt like this kind of beefened our rules up a bit.
Can I ask something? It said that you guys adopted most everything in the code for your private road. Just for quick clarification, what's the 1 or 2 things you didn't?
I couldn't say that right now without looking at it.
Okay, because as a studier, I can't.
Yeah, these were all items that Greg and Chris thought were the most important.
Okay.
Would that be true to say?
Yeah, what we liked was, one of the reasons they adopted the International Fire Code was because they recognized that the private road ordinances didn't really cover grades and angles of approach and radiuses. It wasn't that detailed. And that, in our area, was a real weakness. And maybe 2006, 2007, we changed the private road, our International Fire Code, in that we were willing to accept 16 feet rather than 20 feet on one single-family dwelling. And then water supplies was also modified. When you compare Holland, you compare Ada, you compare some of these other areas, we have to be careful. I say this respectfully. We have lakeshore. 16 feet becomes 12 feet in some winters. You can't move the snow any farther up. So that's why we went 16 feet. You park an engine, you run water supply, you got a 5-inch LDH, you lose almost 5 feet of radius. So you need that width, so the 16 feet is real good. Some do 14, some don't have any requirements at all. I can share this with you, that a number of chiefs have said, we will not take our engines, it's all in writing, we will not take our engines and damage them. with overheads, with construction, we aren't going in, period. And that is one of my big concerns about my auto aid people saying, nope, not going in and parking in the street. Because without automatic aid, Saugatuck is pretty much an island. So that was one of the things that concerned me, just like we wouldn't take our engine over to Hamilton and go out down a 10-foot roadway and knock down the mirrors. We've been through all that before, we're not doing that, then the truck's out of service. We didn't do that. So that minimum standard is something that we're trying for. The Angie's is working on it. They actually got copies of that. Hamilton is discussing it with Manlius and Fillmore. So it's something that they're trying to work on, and that is have a standardization of road widths. But I'm glad Steve recognized 16
Well,
feet.
and to answer the question too, this isn't anything out of the ordinary for a zoning ordinance to have this in the private road rules, in the private driveway rules. This is not something that is stealing from the IFC and putting in our code and wanting to take control of it. This is something that other zoning ordinances have all across the state. This is the, pretty much a model of what most zoning ordinances look like, when you have a good private road ordinance.
If I could speak candidly, here's my apprehension. Okay. Being a pattern of your shared driveway ordinance, we're supposed to go to 20 feet on that, and that's been a struggle for you and for us. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
That's it.
It's been a struggle on, we have a road that's named a private road, and we have 4 houses on it. Isn't it supposed to go to 20 feet, or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I won't split a property on a private road that doesn't meet the standards, and I
We're
have.
following through to make sure that we do have that, and there's a list in
Well,
there. Am I wrong on that?
Well, there's a, I think we're speaking two different languages in part, because if there's a private road that's already overloaded, let's say there's 20 lots on it and only 19 houses built. Just because that 20th person's gonna build their house doesn't mean they need to upgrade the road. But if you split another lot on it, yes, right? At that point, it'd be legally non-conforming, whatever the history may be on that road. But just because you're building another house, and I know the one on the lake shore that we widened, that you probably, that has the house built on the JPD.
Oh, Benjamin?
Bendemeer.
Right, gotcha.
Bendemeer, that just because he was building a house there doesn't mean that the road itself, that I can make them widen it
Gotcha.
legally. Now, if they were to come in and say, we're gonna split another lot or two on, I would say, private road doesn't meet our standards, you can't do that. And I haven't, the 3 years I've been here, I just won't split a lot on a private road that doesn't meet our standards. And I think that's clarification that you can build on them. If you have a legally conforming lot on that private road, I can't stop them from building on it.
Sure.
And I can't make them upgrade the road if that road's been there for however many years. Might, predate our standards. But any new splits, yeah, I won't overload a private road anymore. I think you and I have been on the same page in that.
Just want to clarify that,
Yeah.
because sometimes that gets confusing for me.
Yep.
Based on the land split, if there is one or existing.
Yeah, all land splits have to have legal access, and that means that any road that they're coming off of has to meet our standards, and if it doesn't, we'll deny the split. And that's how I've always done it. So I know it might not have happened in the past, probably didn't, but I can't speak to
Yeah,
my predecessor.
It didn't happen.
We've had that discussion before.
But
so.
that can't be taken out on you.
Right.
I guess my question to both of you guys is, at one point, I thought we were pretty darn close getting this put to bed. And it seemed like we took 3 steps back at the last meeting. What's the sticking points? And can we figure it out? Do we have to put you two in a room and have the white smoke come out when you agree? I mean, seriously.
I thought we've been close
I thought, yeah.
numerous times, and it, I don't know what happened. This is version, the private road rules are version 5, but the IFC rules are version 15 or 16. So we've been through it. It's been far longer than I care.
But it just sounded like you agreed to 16-foot single family. That's great. what's the next thing we gotta work on? I mean, let's,
Nail them down while we're here.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess-
Board members have any feeling on this? It's a workshop, we're supposed to be talking.
So we've got the driveways, what's the next step? That's 16 feet, single family.
That's agreed,
I-
right?
the thing-
16?
Are the Greg, are you happy with the private road rules as we have them? I mean, they're gonna, like I said, that was something that needed to be done regardless of any other IFC stuff.
I'm okay with it. If we agree to the rules, why do you have to shift it from the fire department to you guys? We're the ones that are using them, and it's really imperative. Access is only one of three things that's applicable in the fire code. That's how critical it is. And I just thought, I thought you could review anything from 1 to 4, right? Originally, we kind of talked about it, and I can
We
talk
had
about
said,
this.
yeah.
We talked about you would review anything like less than 150 feet because there was no, we went through that era where you could review anything under 100 feet. Is that right, John?
That's where we left off. It was something that was
under 200 now, but
Under 200 now?
yeah, we need private road rules and private driveway rules.
No, what he's saying though is about that the concerns.
Yeah,
That when we discussed it, it was anything under, under the 200 was what Steve was gonna handle, and anything over that, that's when you were gonna come. And that's where I thought we left off on
Right.
an agreement. We sat in
And
this
I'm
room.
okay with that. I just don't see the need to spend all this time and money shifting it to an ordinance, and that's just my opinion. I know you have your reasons, you don't have to tell me that. I just thought if we have it in the fire code, we have an agreement. Steve says 16 feet, I
It's,
agree.
it's still gotta be an ordinance though.
It's
For someone to come in, even, no matter what, they still have to have it written as an ordinance to follow.
it is, as much as it is, it's a fire, I understand, it's in the fire code, but it's also a planning and zoning aspect as well. And it needs to be in our code. If it does double duty, fine, but at
So
least
that
it
book
mirrors,
that they're
it
gonna
mirrors
reference,
yours.
yeah, the book that they're gonna reference on the planning commission is gonna be a zoning. Because that's what's gonna be, if we went to court, that's what's there for them to refer to.
Yeah.
Because if someone does want to come in and, let's say, split off another lot on a private road that's substandard, they would apply for a zoning variance. That's not anything new.
I don't want to muddle the whole fact of access with either reviewed by the planning commission or not. I don't care anything about the planning commission's review or not. To me, the fire doesn't recognize how it's defined. I think I'm okay with you reviewing those. I just don't know such the demand to shift it to an ordinance when the fire code is adopted by ordinance. It is an ordinance.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
The thing, this is the sticking point, and you don't want it in the zoning ordinance because you don't want to shift the power, correct?
No.
I mean, I'm trying, and the one thing is that you and Chris have said that you guys spend a lot of time on these driveway reviews. And we sat down and we talked about this and said, if someone brings in a driveway plan and they have all their dimensions on there, and it meets the standards, that I could review it, I could do a final review, go out, measure the driveway before they get to see a vote, and take care of that all in-house, where it normally is taken. That's how it's normally handled just about everywhere with a building permit. And I think the people were getting double zoning review, and they weren't expecting it. They're getting zoning review in-house, and they're getting it from the fire department. And it was a long and cumbersome process. It's a lot of work on your guys' part, and we're just trying to simplify things. That's kind of where we stand, and I really don't have a whole lot more to say on it. That's kind of how we got here, if everybody wants to know the background of it.
Is it fair to say that you're two sound in agreement on the road widths, the grades, overhead obstructions? It's just now we're into, does the township need an ordinance, need it in an ordinance? And I've seen communications that seem to say yes. I mean, we, like you say, when you go get a building permit, you need to know what the ordinances are.
Well, I need,
why it's a problem.
I have a land division application sitting on my desk. I need to know, I need to be able to tell the applicant this is what our zoning ordinance says for easement width, surface width. You know, private road maintenance agreement, all that good stuff. So,
The township adopted the International Fire Code, so can't they just refer to the road requirements under the International Fire Code? This is not about control, it's safety issues, it's not about control. That's all this is
Right.
about, you know? We've talked
yeah,
about
and
that.
what I'm saying is this, regardless of the IFC, this is a change that needed to be made to our private road rules. And that's where we're at on that.
Question. Is this how the two communities do it? I'm not sure how the Douglas zoning does it. Greg, do you review all of the driveways for the three communities in these situations? Or is it brand new to the township and Saugatuck and Douglas are already doing it? Or is it something different?
They run, Douglas and Saugatuck run the driveway reviews past us. Like Saugatuck City has some areas that have long driveways. And the zoning administrator said, well, I don't want to take this on, will you review it? And that's the way it's done.
So if a citizen were to say, hey, I bought a lot out here in the fields by Northern Lights, I'm building a brand new house, is that process the same as it would be in Saugatuck and the township?
It's only the same in Douglas and Saugatuck. Like, for example, if they were building a house downtown Water Street where the lots are very small and very short, no one would be reviewing a 30-foot driveway. You know, the zoning administrator knows, yep. You get to Dune Grass where they're very complex, or you get to Campbell Road in Saugatuck City where it's long and turnarounds are required. They don't want to touch that. So that's how we do it.
So it is different from,
The review process is proposed to be different, yes.
But
And even a little
I thought
differently.
the exception was that you would still review 200 and up, and it was only 200
Correct.
feet and less.
And
So-
lot splits of 5 or more.
So
Any
it
large-
seems very, very close to me, but, because you're still gonna review anything but, like you just said, sort of the common everyday stuff.
But Greg, I also hear you saying you agree with the road widths, where you're in total agreement, I think.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with the specifications because they came
And
from the fire
especially-
code.
Yeah, the township just feels.
And I modified what was acceptable,
And what,
you know.
what's the problem? I don't see the problem of putting it in an ordinance then. And if it's something needs to be added or changed in the future, it goes through the same process. Add, delete, whatever. But it's chipped in stone when it goes in the ordinance and everybody knows it, what the rules are.
Can I ask, why do you, if you already have the IFC, why don't you just refer to the IFC and make that part of, and just say that is the ordinance?
because if someone comes in and doesn't want to meet the standards of a driveway width or a private road width, the way we have it written, they can go to our zoning board of appeals at the township and appeal it based on practical difficulty or whatever. And like I said, I can tell people, hey, this is what our township ordinance is on private roads. This is what you need to meet. It meets IFC code as well.
But if they can appeal, you can make an exception. Maybe that's what the chief's concerns are.
Well, and
Not
I've
too
talked
many of
to
those.
the chief about that as well, is that would be something that would have fire chief input. If we have a variance on a private road or a private driveway, I would ask his input on that.
Could that be written into there, not just a gentle, nice ask, but
I-
that it's required to ask them simply?
We could.
I would hate to think that the township would just take it lightly.
I don't
If there's a question, they would refer back to.
I don't think a variance on a private road is only going to be, you're only going to get a variance approved on a private road if it's something where you can't meet the width because of wetlands or something like that. It's going to be something where there's some major physical, practical difficulty. And like I said, I've always told Greg I would value his input on that.
But with that being said, if it's not in this ordinance,
Yeah.
well, you're giving us your word, but what happens if you move on to maybe you run for governor and we got a new zoning commissioner?
We have section on the page 17, last the section construed as requiring a permit from the fire official for the construction of a structure.
Are you looking in the?
That's the,
That's the
that's the
IFC.
IFC though.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
17 is the zoning administrator or a planning commission has the authority to modify the roadway.
Where is
I would just have to trust that discretion is used, you know, on that. As, I mean, you know, one thinks, oh, are you going to be modifying because the guy has a 100-year-old tree there?
Mhm.
And I haven't seen you do that, so I have no cause.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, to me, that's pretty liberal, because anybody can claim a hardship. You know, that's a 100-year-old beech tree or anything, but I just have to trust that, you know, to be sensible. Here's my suggestion. Why doesn't the board decide what to do with this? You know, Steve and I are on the same page on dimensions. And I think the root of this is from a nationally recognized standard. I have no problem taking one dwelling down to 16 feet, correct, Steve?
Yeah.
Right. Anything shared, 2 or more, is 20 feet.
Correct.
Right. Hydrant, it follows the fire code.
What's that?
If there's hydrants, it follows the fire code as far as that hydrant is 26 feet wide.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with the bump out
Right.
by the hydrant.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So why doesn't the fire board decide what you want to do so I don't waste all your time on this, okay? You know? Steve and I have had a rocky road lately, and that's not what I want,
No, me either.
okay? Because this is counterproductive. You know, there's a lot more serious things in the International Fire Code than there is this. That's why you'll see my red comments aren't very minor, right?
For the private roads.
For the private
Yeah.
road. Right.
I personally am not real upset with what they want. That's just me. I think cities do have a reason to have good, tight zoning ordinances and things that they can make judgments on. I think it sounds like that for years you've always worked together and gotten each other's approvals, and there's got to be some of that going on. It seems like a minor compromise to me. That's
Well, I
just
think in the
my
past,
opinion.
there's been some understandings that things were going to get done and they weren't done either. So I don't know where the teeth are to all this, but,
Well, and if the chief sees something that's not being enforced, I'm sure he'll
We
come
run into
back,
it all the
and
time. That's why
that
we're
would
glad to see
happen.
Steve in the township.
right.
So we
there's-
could have consistently applied,
Right.
this is the rule, follow it, and then when you make exception, you've got to answer for it. That was my big concern. And has been, and still is.
The township is filled with things
Right.
that shouldn't have been built.
But we have to trust Steve's gonna do the right
Absolutely.
thing here, right?
Yeah,
We have to trust
well-
you to do the right thing.
And I've helped you on how many different items that were substandard
Well,
before.
stuff that was approved.
Yeah,
And, you know, and that's why it was sad to go, and I don't want to go in a different direction on this whole thing, because you were helpful with some of these, Bernstein and issues like that.
Okay, so I think whoever suggested that the fire board
We can't make a.
No, I'm not
No, no,
talking
no,
about decision.
not today, but I think that the fire district, and it is a district, and we need to run the whole district the same. And so we should make a decision about what we want for the district. You can't run the township different than the cities, it's a district.
And this will
I mean,
be a different process.
all those districts in the community, Cal Lake doesn't run their district different.
I think there is a difference though, between the township and the two cities. When it comes to private roads and private driveways, we have, you know, these long country driveways that the cities don't have. And, you know, the private road rules, you know, are something that probably the city of Saugatuck would never need. And, you know, this is township specific, for sure. Wouldn't you agree, Greg? I mean, this isn't something
Yeah,
that,
we have more opportunities for longer driveways. We analyze
we don't have
stuff
water.
over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's more imperative to have access, because there is no water.
Right.
And the houses now are no longer 2,500 square feet. 30% of the district and township has driveways over 150 feet. 208 driveways over 150 feet. We're not talking 1, 2, 3, 4 dozen. That was all looked at with GPS and overhead. So there's a lot of opportunities, and there might be splits off that we don't even know about that will occur in the future. So that's why it's imperative to be able to access these with the way we do firefighting here. When you make comparisons, or in general, I'm talking about all of us make comparisons to some of these, do they have tanker pumpers? Does anybody even know what that means? We lay in, we have a 12-foot driveway, we can't drive anything in. So people are walking 1,000 feet in with air packs and irons. They're spent when they get to the house fire. So those are the problems we run into, and that's what we kind of shared with Steve. Hey, we're stuck out here on a 1,200-foot driveway, and we can't even turn around, it's 10 feet wide. How did it even get approved? We don't know. We don't know. But we're stuck with the problem, that's why we take it so seriously.
So, do we have enough, does anybody need any more information to deal with this? Or is there enough information, we'll deal with that at our next meeting?
I have a question. And then maybe Steve can clarify. I totally understand like a Bendemeer, like Dale Court, where there's like one house being built and the road's already 12 feet wide. You can't make that one individual pay for the 20 houses where the road that was never done correctly, and that part makes sense. But what about when it's like a single house being built? I'm thinking of like the one off of Old Allegan, Tim Locker, I think his name is. It's 6,100 something. But where he's coming through an easement on the neighbor's property.
That easement,
Okay.
his parcel had access to that easement prior,
Okay.
and probably had for however many years.
Right.
And I can't make them widen that. I mean,
Okay.
it'd be nice if they would, but
Right.
I can't make them widen it.
Okay.
And there's a lot off of Old Allegan like that too.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Does anybody else need any more information?
I definitely agree. You know, it sounds, I mean, there's definitely uniqueness in the township, so when we, you know, draft this, whatever it is we draft in this next meeting, you've got driveways, water supply. Sounds like it's the two big issues out in the township compared to the other areas of the district. I would imagine cost recovery is across the board. I can't think of any unique situations that might be going on out there.
Well, township has very large square foot houses because of the parcel size. No water supply, so everything's against you.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to the International Fire Code modifications?
The ones that we number with page 59 were Can I comment?
Yes.
I don't,
Yeah, kind of, good luck, huh?
yeah.
Page 59, what we have numbered, so it's going to look like this.
16, 27.
It's on the screen too, if you want.
It's on the screen.
I got
It
it.
looks like this.
Page
17.
17.
Oh, Lawrence.
Packet.
Thank you.
Steve, what's confusing on this, and maybe it's me, but I don't think it's just me, what's confusing on this was, correct me if I'm wrong, you're gonna do reviews from up to 4. On the 5th, that's what we consider a development, right?
Yeah.
The water supply kicks in?
Yep, and that's why, that's another reason why we had the private road rules the way we had them too. And that for 4 developments or 4 or less, I would use the private road rules to basically tell them, hey, you know, it has to be 20 foot wide, 66 foot easement width, tell them what kind of turnaround, because those will mimic the IFC. So essentially, you're not losing the IFC roadway widths or driveway widths for 4 or under. So anything 5 or more, plus any kind of large scale subdivisions, site condos, PUDs, would still be under the IFC. So the only change is basically your single family home driveways that would have to meet our standards, which we took the IFC standards out, put it into our own private road and private driveway rules. And I think that clears things up a bit for your single-family home rule and the water supply. Was it 3 or more is what you considered development before,
Right.
where a water supply had to kick in, now we're up to 5. And you made that concession.
Parcel that has been subsequently divided into 4-child parcels. That to me is very confusing, where you and I use the language 5 or more, 4 or less.
It's 5,
This is-
that's 5 or more, so you have 4 children and the parent parcel's 5. And that date in there is, that's the next township board date. Was just inserted in there.
I just don't think it's real clear to the average reader. I think you're going to be explaining that. And to me, it wasn't, we never even discussed anything like that at all. We discussed clear, concise language that's easy to read. But that's not up to me. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
My opinion is this is very poorly worded, and that's my opinion.
Okay.
I think it's too lawyer, too technical.
Yeah, well,
And you know what it says, because but you don't get 5 out of that parent part. I've never seen anything like this, but I don't tend to be a zoning administrator expert. That's my personal opinion. I just think it's very poorly written.
But does it cover what it's supposed to?
yeah, I think it does. And
And we specifically talked about, the zoning administrator, following construction plans that be applicable, 4 or less and all that. And we've kind of got that as far as the private road ordinance or that criteria.
so I think you were in agreement with this, correct? I mean, we didn't have a whole lot
I just
with the
don't-
IFC section.
I just think the wording up here is very subpar,
Yeah,
but
I
whatever.
Work to reword it?
It's up to the board, it's up to the board. I just can't imagine anybody here understanding that.
Well, Greg, what,
16 of them.
would you guys consider putting a fire district comment in there and have Greg word it the way he wants?
I've
If we're
got it.
saying the same thing.
I got it in there.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, you've got some other disagreements and things like that. But what I'm saying is you could put it in,
We could change that. That'd be no problem. If that's a sticking point, I really don't care. Like, we can
No,
reword
this is
it.
what we agreed to, 5 or more would come to, I still have a problem, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what is a large-scale development?
We could take that wordage out of there too.
And we've mentioned, it should be quantified. For example, when do you have to have a secondary access road?
This-
The ordinance is more than 30 houses. So,
Here's what we could
Yeah.
do. When constructed as part of new subdivision, site condominium, or other developments of 5 lot splits or more.
that is in your ordinance, right? That's the way it should be done. Right.
Easy.
Good.
everyone hear that? Done.
Steve, this is just getting too easy.
After 17 revisions, you guys are getting good.
We're down to majored and minors.
I think B, we should just skip over. I think we're pretty much on the page
Okay.
on that. Fair enough?
Yep.
Where we get into number 2 is, we get into some of the maintenance issues and things that, I don't know, it seems like some of this stuff was struck out with even giving thoughts to it. Let me go down to 105 if I may. Will the board allow me to do that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Here's the issue I have for this. My understanding of this is it evolved around single-family dwellings. The way this is read, page 60, in the middle, the way this is read is anything that's governed by a Michigan construction code, we have no right to the permit process. The permit process is nothing more than reviewing construction plans for hydrants, sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems, hood suppression systems, which clearly is what we do. And I thought I had mentioned this to Steve, and if I didn't, I failed at that. But I have a real problem. I thought we talked about that even with Jonathan. Why would you want to take us away from that? We are not here to substitute for our great mechanical inspectors. We're just trying to know the system, because when we get called out, we don't even know where the systems are, what areas of coverage. So I struggle with any acceptance of this at all. Again, we are not trying to be a substitute for them. And my understanding was we weren't going to do this, because this goes above and beyond single-family dwellings. That's hotels. It's any system. Steve?
I'll take a look at it.
I just, this is a real blow to me. So please take a look at it.
105.1 is the one you're
Yeah.
talking about right now.
Was 105.1 added just recently?
No, he's kind of.
We went through it in early revisions and we objected.
Yeah, he's crossing them out.
Right.
We have.
And it came back in, and maybe it was strictly by error, Steve. Maybe the lawyer put it in by error. I don't know.
Who crossed it out? The lawyer?
No,
No, I
he
crossed
struck.
that out
Oh,
because I will not agree to that.
oh, okay.
Period. I will not agree to that. Sorry.
Seems to effectively eliminate the entire fire inspection process.
Now, can we go on to 106? May I do that, Chuck?
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's one, Steve, I don't know why this would possibly happen. Why I can't examine and do a fire inspection on any building, I don't think you guys meant to write this like this. We can't go in and do our annual inspections on hotels and B&Bs without being authorized or requested by the building official or the zoning administrator. You know, I'm sorry, I object. I don't know what we did to cause that to be written in there.
I actually put a comment on that when I read it, because it said when authorized or requested. And I thought, if it's authorized, he's in. I mean, that's
I can't do
authorized.
that, I'll tell you right now, board, I'll have to go in under Public Act 207. I will not do this. This is unfair, it's unrealistic, I can't be subjected to a building official who has no knowledge of fire prevention. And Steve, you don't want to be part of this. Why would you say, why am I going to call you up and say, can I go into Best Western?
No, I know.
I don't think it was meant to be written this way, and perhaps I've taken it the wrong way. But this is a real blow to the fire service.
It could have been something that we had,
Right.
like we said, we're on,
Right.
we're on amendment
Steve, we've had some mistakes here
50.
with the attorney. Come on, Steve, laugh, will you?
For $400 an hour, you shouldn't make mistakes.
No.
Well, I'm sure Marilyn doesn't have to call the city before her boat gets inspected by the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
No, pretty sure.
We have the
Right.
right under Public Act 207 to
Right.
go in. And I don't want to get to that point where I'm circumnavigating townships.
I agree.
I think this is an oversight,
It,
you know?
you know, I'm willing to look at that, and if we take it out, we take it out. If that's something that we don't need in there.
Well,
that's
if we
fine.
don't take it out, board, we have a real serious problem, I'll tell you right now. A real serious problem.
So you two get together and figure out how this should be worded, and let's move
The
on.
word it goes out.
So 105.1,
It needs to be gone.
106.1.
He shouldn't
Right,
need
I
to get
agree.
Everything would be
permission.
there.
That's the-
I am not asking permission
Right.
to do a fire prevention inspection, period.
I
For
support
the
you
record.
there.
That doesn't make
I think it's just an
So-
oversight.
Yeah.
We're okay with just those two, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're okay with this, the stop work order you
What does that mean
changed.
though? Does that mean going in for periodic inspections or?
Yeah, but ISO, how many annual inspections you do a year?
No, I mean like existing buildings, is it updating yearly? I mean, cause like, I've never had fire people come back to my building and re-inspect it.
We,
As a house, you mean?
No, business.
we do inspections, the ones that are done annually are hotels and B&Bs.
Okay, that makes sense.
The businesses were on a 3-year plan. The only reason was because of the volume of rentals. We couldn't do annuals on everything because there's so many rentals.
But you should be able to go into a building if you think there's a problem without asking permission
Seem to
from.
all be in
I
agreement.
mean, there's
That's
criteria we have to follow. We have to identify ourselves. It has to be within
Yeah, the
business
only time
hours.
that I've ever been required to do inspections when I usually get audited by the insurance company, and they request me, because they want to make sure my fire extinguishers on all my poles in the plant are updated and stuff.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
The other items on here, Steve, are what we agreed to.
Okay.
You know, the fees going through the township, we're all good with that. So to recap, the two, right.
26-1. All right.
Okay,
Fair enough.
Explain to me about the fees going through the township, just so.
I think what it is there's a big misunderstanding, number one, with the public perception that we're doubling people's fees. That's not fair. Those fees were approved by this board. Motion. It's all documented in the minutes, and those fees were all established because we are not city-run. We are not mayor-run. We are a separate entity. So those fees were allowed by the fire code. I didn't create that. I established the fees back in 2014, and those were revised, approved. So it does have it casts this illusion that, well, gosh, I'm paying the township and I'm paying the fire department. Yeah, sometimes you are. And that's the way the fire code was written, and it's done in many areas. If we were under Grand Rapids, you know, the fire department underneath that, yeah, that would be charging twice.
I think the main thing is that whatever fees you guys have to be on the township fee schedule,
Disclosed.
disclosed on the township
Yeah.
fee schedule, something that the township board approves.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah,
That was very early on.
yep, and that's why nothing was ever, but I'm good with that.
Okay, I thought that fee schedule was given to all the communities, correct?
It's been on since 2014, and it was, yes.
Okay, moving on. We're down to page 63.
Didn't we skip something before that?
Yes.
Not that you necessarily do it now, but I thought we missed something.
Well,
I'm not seeing it now.
Yeah, I went over, it would have been number 2,
Yeah,
it's
you,
on
you
page
said you're
60.
you said you're okay with number 2, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 2 on 1025, right? Right?
No, go up.
What are we talking about? Which number?
Earlier than that.
It was administrative operational maintenance provisions. That's
Yeah, you said you were fine with that, right? Okay.
It's okay.
Okay, so I think we're on page 63 now.
This should be more of a board discussion. I put my comments in here. And nothing's changed on this since I started revising this.
So there should be a board discussion?
Well, I think by nature, you guys are I figure out how to pay for things and figure out where the money comes from, but I think this should be a joint discussion among the board members. We had proposed a policy statement to try to guide us. township feels it needs to be more detailed. And, you know, the biggest problem that I had is nowhere else do I have to go and get permission to bill somebody, and I have to go before one person, and I don't think that's realistic, and I don't think there's any equity in that.
So we're at cost recovery.
Correct.
Okay, so feelings on cost recovery. Anybody?
Why do we care who bills them? If we agree the amount, on the other, I have two comments, I guess, there's that. Because I've heard their side is that they should have a right to be the one face, and people don't understand the bills and blah, 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 when they come from here. The other concern I would have, why it shouldn't come from the fire department, and don't take this offensively, but I've seen it in cities, cronyism and things, and that's what worries me. I think if the fire department does the billing, it's a third-party outsider, and not, in this case, you gave your friend or your buddy, you didn't charge him, or, you know, you don't ever get accused of that when you're out of it, and the fire department does it. So it does make sense to me that the fire department would do the billing. It's their code and stuff like that. So that's just
I can
their
explain it to you a different way. It probably isn't good to have one person be judge, jury, and executioner. That's how I view it. I think that it needs to be a checks and balance situation, no matter what, where somebody reviews it. You know, I can take I'm taking Greg's word that place burned down because she had hot grease on the stove. Understand. Now, the woman's baby was crying in the other room, she ran in the other room. Whatever it may be, it was a neglect situation. Let's just say, using this for instance,
Right.
she gets a bill for it. You know, is there discretion that's needed there? Is she liable? Does that make her at fault? Should it be covered under her taxes? Should her insurance company should pay it? But I don't know that it's maybe always direct to go, man, you're done, you pay. That's what I'm saying.
We don't do that, we've never done that. I think that's pretty much an exaggeration and an embellishment, and I think there's gross misinterpretation with the sole cost recovery thing, that's my opinion.
Well, I've been involved in some of these discussions, and can I just add that to the rest of the board, we, as a township, thought we had to tighten up the definition of what was cost recoverable. I think, Greg, you knew that from the very beginning. And that's what the majority of what you're looking at here does. It defines things. What is something that could be billed? The old ordinance was so vague, you could bill for almost anything. This one has addressed the specifics of what misconduct is and so forth. Extraordinary emergency. If it's arson, it's billable, but it has to be proven to be arson. If it's something involving a stove that may or may not have been installed, I don't think the fire department can make that determination. And all we're saying is, if it fits this ordinance, our zoning administrator should have a look at it to see that it does fit the ordinance. We've got a definition of what's billable, so that's all we're asking. We're not.
It would be very transparent at that point.
Right.
I don't know what we're trying to hide.
Right,
I mean,
you don't want the zoning administrator to take a look at, have you interpreted our ordinance correctly? He's the zoning administrator and should be the best one to understand what's in these 2 pages. So
I think, Greg,
struggle with this.
Greg, you and I had talked about it, that, you know, it does define better what an extraordinary event is, and that 99 times out of 100, you and I are going to agree on something that can be cost recovered. And that one time we don't, it goes to the 5-person township board, and, you know, they get to hear both sides of your opinion and my opinion. Or they get to decide, you know, whether or not it's recoverable or not. I think that probably gives our residents the best way, you know, and you as well. It gives both our residents and you a way of appealing it. And I don't.
When we went to that meeting with Steve Smith, or Scott Smith and Jeff Sluggett,
Yeah.
and there were some of us there, if I recollect correctly, Scott suggested, or maybe it was Jeff, that a appeals board be put into place. So if you had a problem with what you were charged, you had an appeals board to go to. The appeals board should be made up of all 3 communities and run through the fire district. And that this shouldn't be a localized restriction, and Greg should do the billing as he is fire chief.
I guess I'm struggling with that. I have to submit this to the county zoning administrator for review.
Well, the other, to address though, back on what you said, Jane, I've been through some meetings where I think from a legal standpoint, our attorney, our advice to the township is the township should approve something that's being billed to a resident of the township so that we are buying into that. We are behind it 100%. The previous ones, if you read in your packet, all came from the fire department. And the township never knew until after the fact that those bills had gone out. And we've had a serious legal issue with that, because we're the guys who take the heat and have the potential of lawyers coming at us. If you, Greg, are saying you violated a township ordinance, but you have made that judgment and not the township, and the township doesn't have your back. So the whole reason for this was to get you covered and get the fire district covered. And the township is 100% behind it once that bill goes out, from a legal standpoint.
That's not
I
what
need to send
And
you a
we also
green
then
light
can
on
put
that.
it on their tax rolls, their tax bill as
That's
a,
recovery.
for recovery.
And that's, yeah, the power
If we
behind
have
us being
signed
able
into
to
it.
change their
But
tax
what
roll.
we did in the past was really not, was a little iffy.
There's the teeth behind it right there, and we can take it out of their tax. And maybe we need to go to the cities and do the same thing. Greg submits it to the city clerk, and they send out the letter.
I
think
followed-
what we're saying, we're trying to say, the
Well, there's
township
some
is trying
HIPAA
to say,
violations involved
we
with that.
don't have a problem
What?
with the fee recovery when
What's
it
the
fits
HIPAA
this
violation?
ordinance.
You know, it's a HIPAA
At all.
violation. That any-
The township is, I can't speak for the board, but I think 100% behind this. That we've finally given some definition to what the heck is really cost recoverable.
It just seems to be a different conversation now from, you know, I mean, even 10 days ago, Aaron's jumping all over us for the Daniel Drive fire. We were on the phone with that gentleman. He's thanking us, even wrote a letter, thank you for this. And, you know, Aaron has to let that go, but he and I will have that conversation. But we even had that whole Daniel Drive thing echo that, boy, am I glad you guys saved the building. I'm glad you did me a favor. All that was recorded and put in the record. So if I had gone to the township, there's no way with the influence from Aaron and Brad, would you approve that?
I told you that. We
No
in
way.
our discussion, I said I probably would have signed off on that one to be cost recovered.
Brad, they was very, and I don't want to, Brad was very, they were very adamant that we were wrong to do that. Yet then I have the building official that says it was unlawful, which is an illegal fire according to ordinance as it stands now. So I understand the extraordinary cost, you want to clarify that and have that more detailed, that's your choice, you know? But I don't feel that one person, I wouldn't do that in Saugatuck City, nor would I do it in Douglas. There's no objectivity.
Well, if
I wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Greg, if you're doing it, it's one person. This is
Yeah.
a check and balance.
Right, but I'm a neutral entity
Well-
on this. I'm not succumb to political pressure or if it's a friend of mine. So I see what you're saying, Roy, I
You
am
are
one
subject-
person. Right.
Let's be reasonable, you are.
And so it goes to him and then it goes to the board. How is it?
Or cronyism.
His buddy isn't my buddy.
Why don't we have something that,
I guess,
a check and balance before it goes?
That's,
You write it, it goes to him, if you guys disagree, let's
Then
have.
there's-
personally, I don't think it's any of theirs. Personally, I think it should go to the fire board. You guys decided it should go forward.
see, I would
You know.
object because the fire board can't interpret township
I'm
ordinance.
not gonna stick my, I'm not a fireman, I don't know. I'll tell you about sandpaper, tell you blue in the face, but I can't tell you about this.
Neither are they.
And I'm not gonna.
No.
But they have building code experience. So if there's a building code issue there, now you encompass that. So I think, I understand where they're coming from. I mean, it's worked in the past, for the past 11 years I've been on the board. Greg's done a great job with it. We hardly ever have any issues with it. So why don't, here we go again, let's compromise,
What
let's
are you
figure
gonna
this
do,
out.
what are you gonna do with drunk driving episodes? Do you want those to go to the board? Do you want?
No.
It's a motor vehicle
Motor
accident.
vehicle
Things
things
don't go to it.
That's
Yeah,
total
we-
separate,
We got,
That's
we agreed to have you
motor
guys.
vehicle
you know,
separate.
Yeah.
Totally separate. That's not a township property, it's not a township,
Okay, this
Issue
is
with
probably a discussion that the fire board should have, how we want to handle cost recovery. It's our district, and we are a district.
We're here for a workshop.
So-
Talk about.
Well, there's a couple of issues in here that we're going to discuss, and maybe that should be another one.
these, may I just remind everyone that these, what definitions, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, have been discussed for the last 6 months.
We've never discussed it.
Well, I'm not sure where that lies.
No, yeah, Steve details some things, or the lawyer details some things more specifically.
Well, no, we're on
you know.
iteration
Oh,
17 or something.
we've had this IFC,
Hold on.
or the cost recovery for 3-4 months now in terms of a working draft.
And I've taken the same position on it, that I don't agree
We
with one
don't want the
person.
zoning
or-
administrator to have a sign off. I understand that. I understand where that conflict is. But we seem to, can we agree that you're in agreement with the definitions of what is an extraordinary emergency incident, et cetera, in a home, for example?
And my personal opinion is it's pretty restrictive. And then,
Well,
you
you
know,
made a comment once, Greg. It was, you go, I build them for, let's say, I'm gonna use a fake number, $5,000. I hope I get half. I think would give us the ability to enforce it, get you the whole amount too. There's another side to that. That's a benefit is what I'm saying to it.
Well, one thing about if you say 5 and we take 2,500, I don't think that's a very good practice, because why are we doing it? Is it a hardship? Have they proven a hardship? Or do we just feel good that day and say, we'll take half of it?
it's
So
a
if
fair
we're gonna have a
question.
fee schedule, we stick to it.
Okay, let Greg answer.
Yeah, it's a fair comment. In township, the cost recovery had an impact of, over 3 years, 0.83% of the cost recovery was township. So that's where I think it's really been just so embellished, it's over the top. And when we have a few of these, like for example, Daniel Drive occurred, his insurance company said, we're not gonna pay for this because you didn't get a permit to put it in on a wood stove. He came to us, I said, let me talk to the chief stick and get the truck charges off, and everybody agreed to remove the truck charges. That's why it was reduced. Skinner, he had people sleeping in a chicken coop. A chicken coop. We're lucky nobody died. And we billed him. And we offered a payment plan. We got $200, That's all we ever got. We can argue back and forth on this whole cost recovery.
I'm just saying
thing.
that maybe that's one of the instances where we could have got the amount back. Could have, you know, we have a stronger ability to get that money back to you.
Jonathan, I don't know. I honestly don't know how to comment on that. I don't know.
I mean, he would
I
have
don't know
to,
what the I don't know what the relation is here that you're trying to.
well, because
So what you have to do with that, I don't know. You know,
Tax.
I'm trying to understand.
using tax dollars.
Put 'em-
And that,
Lean
that's,
on the
you know, that's
property.
not what we want to do, because clearly, you know, we were just trying to get taxpayers' costs back for making, for what they were doing, and it was knowingly, it was 100% preventable, you know? And when all this happened with me being criticized with the whole cost recovery, we didn't go to the township and ask to put on the taxes, because we want to resolve this whole thing. That's what this
But you
stuff
deserve to get
costs.
paid for what you do if it's something that's pure negligence, you know?
But it seemed to be, we were in a disagreement on illegal, I have to wait some type of criminal activity. The board didn't tell me that. I followed the ordinance. I followed the ordinance, so, you know.
But this is why we're tightening up the ordinance, because it was too vague.
You know,
I
it's-
remember reading the original ordinance, and wow, we could just bill almost anything, because you could always point to something. So we feel this needs to be for our homeowners, our residents, property owners, something that's specific.
It just depends on your perspective. Some people believe in cost recovery, some don't.
Yeah, there's some areas that don't have it at all. You're right.
And there are some that bill for everything. So I understand that. You know, there are two sides. But when I was hired, it was a job requirement. You shall do grants and you shall do cost recovery. And then when I get mixed messages from the board that approve this stuff, and then they question it after it happens, it's kind of confusing to know what to do. If the board told me, you're not going to charge any taxpayers, I go, oh boy, okay. But the board never told me that.
So right now you're saying it's point what? What's the percentage you receive?
What is that 0.8% of what number?
Total,
Over the 3-year period, the average cost recovery applied to Saugatuck Township taxpayers is less than 1%, it was 0.83%
Of what?
of all the cost recovery. I had some documents we had done right here. I can give those to you again if you want them, Roy.
There you go.
And it just seemed
Well,
like it was
Greg,
helpful.
I don't know what you're aiming at, but I've always supported the cost recovery. And I've always believed in extraordinary cases, we should bill someone. I still believe that today. And I don't want to get billed if my smoke detector goes off and I pay taxes and you come. That's why we pay taxes. So, just for the record, I support cost recovery. Now, if we could get through this and figure out the checks and balances and,
Well, then maybe Steve's extraordinary expense definition, that clarification will help guide us as far as what we're gonna bill.
But cost recovery needs to be the same across the district. Absolutely, it needs to be the same. Otherwise, the
well, I
other
don't
two,
think, why can't it be?
yeah, the other two jurisdictions are gonna be paying more
But
or be paying for the township.
But extraordinary circumstances are
I don't-
why would they be
impossible.
paying more?
I don't know why they pay more.
If we,
you're not,
You can only cost recover stuff that's an extraordinary incident. That's not changing. It's just
that's
being,
true.
it's just being more, it's more specific now.
And
You're
there's
not-
no-
you're actually gonna
define
get
it.
more, you're actually probably gonna get more money when you do it.
You're not losing anything. It's just the procedure.
Well, I'm losing time because I gotta go to you.
Hey,
They're saving it on those
No, I know
driveways.
you don't agree with
No,
that,
you
Roy,
can-
but
it's
but
something-
I do.
you
You
can-
gotta go through the procedure to write up why it's.
It has to be
It's a
the
simple
same.
PDF with
Now
my
you're-
signature.
you're
We're worried about
just
time
reading
and we've been
out
working on
PDF
this
and
for
that's
6
the
months.
It
So I don't
wouldn't,
see
it
any
wouldn't,
real-
it wouldn't go out unless you approved it, is what I heard.
be,
you'd have some kind of appeal way, the two
Yeah.
of you would
Why
work it
would
out.
the
Yeah.
two?
So it would never go out to
Maybe-
the public until you do agree.
I would
Is that
suggest
what I
that the
heard?
two cities.
It would not
take a
get
look
billed.
at this.
That's a compromise.
he would give me the cost recovery, I would say, looks good, Greg, put my
Right.
signature on it, and then he would send the bill out. And then if either I don't agree with Greg or the taxpayer doesn't agree with Greg, it's appealed to our township board.
No, it should be appealed to the fire
Well,
district.
that's,
board.
but that's how we have it, is the township board.
But it should be appealed to the
No,
fire
that's-
district board. That we all, there's an equal amount, in fact, you have more, of representatives on the township board, or on the fire district board. This is a fire district, this is a fire thing, not a township thing.
John, help me out. Are we in a legal problem here? Because if we have approved the invoice, but then it's somehow overridden by the fire board,
If he approves the invoice, you mean?
yeah.
Steve?
And then
Well, what happens
somebody
if,
wants to appeal to the fire board, is what Dane is suggesting. And
Well, I think we should make a sub-board of 3 people, one from each municipality, not have 3, we have extra.
Scott Smith recommended that in the meeting.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me. So it's
Yeah,
3,
independent board.
you have 3.
Yeah.
And one
And an
from each
independent
jurisdiction.
fire review board.
And then, yeah, I don't think it has to be this fire board.
Yeah, I don't think it should be the township.
No,
No,
I actually kind of agree with
You
that.
look at page 63 under B, and you'll see there will be equity and fairness, again, my opinion, and objectivity with one person from each of the 3 municipalities, even for review, in the appeal process. That's the way I felt it should be. But again, that's my opinion, it's not the board's.
Chris, could you email that to me? Thank you.
And I think though, by still going through Steve, you get that, I call it buying power, but you get the ability to get the money a lot easier. Because if it doesn't, if it, for some reason, this person doesn't want to pay, then we have a way of recovering the money. There's a way to do it.
Well, the legal way.
There's a legal way to do it through tax.
The 3-person fire board, what kind of teeth do you guys have to make someone?
No, I didn't mean a 3-person fire board, I meant one
review
from each.
I know, that board, what kind of power would that board have to, what power do they have to get someone to pay? Like, would you guys have to go big time legal expenses to get them? I mean, if it.
No.
no, we were just
what they're done-
approving, or
Just a
Right.
review. They're just doing a review. After you guys, let's say the homeowner came back and said, you know, hey, I want a review of it.
Right.
He's getting 3 independent people to review it. Those people say, no, you're liable for it. Then it would come back to us. Then we could apply the tax on to the
Okay, that's what I was
person,
asking.
get the recovery money,
Okay.
get it back to Greg.
if you 2 disagree, it comes
Like
back
the
to the
zoning
board,
code.
the
Yeah,
3-person
yeah,
board,
basically,
and they
it's
say
in
yes
front
or
of
your
no,
zoning. Make the
and then it proceeds from there.
I would
And it
say-
probably should happen with the cities also.
I would suspect it won't happen. I hope.
I don't think it will
I
happen
don't think
either,
either.
but
Very.
No,
very
it probably
slim
won't, but
chance.
at least it, you
But
know,
it's-
it gives,
you gotta
even the cities,
specify
it gives
it.
them the power
You have to have
to
an
get the
appeal
money, you know?
process.
right, because if you get a bill from the fire department, it's not as, doesn't have as much teeth as if you get one from the
Especially
city.
when your insurance company says, I'm not paying, then then that
Right.
person's going, well, I'm not paying it, the insurance company's not
If you
gonna
get
pay
one
it.
from the city and you're worried about getting it from your tax bill,
Would
it's
you
not
allow
teeth.
something like that, Greg?
I like
Let's discuss this further as a board, how we are a fire board,
Right.
and this is a fire district, and let's discuss this at a,
I like that idea.
let's think about it and discuss this at a future meeting. I don't think, well, nothing can be decided today anyway,
No.
but I think we need to look at this a little further.
So to recap, is it the review or the submittal that would be one from each municipality? What would you
It's,
say?
I think it's the review. If you submit to Steve and he disagrees, it goes to the review. And then if the taxpayer doesn't, then it goes to the review.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, instead of kicking the can down the road, let's take care of it now.
Yeah.
We can't make a decision.
I know,
No,
but
but we
we
can
think
talk
this
If we
is
start
open
implementing it
setting
in
here,
here,
we can,
Yeah, we can
Talk
put it
about
in
it.
his writing and.
I like that
Well,
I'd sure like to have the city weigh in on it. if you're gonna
Yeah,
start-
the
Yeah,
city
right.
should
Because Douglas
weigh in
isn't
on it.
here
Yeah.
and Saugatuck isn't represented, except for sitting in the audience, so, I mean, you want to be fair with the cities. And you're making, now I gotta have my zoning administrator, the fire chief has to go and ask the zoning administrator for permission. It's ridiculous.
No,
No.
not the way we're, this
This
is
is what you
only
just said, it's
township.
ridiculous, that the
Yeah.
fire chief has to go and ask permission to do, to.
This is only township.
But this is a fire
It's gotta
district,
stay
it's not
consistent.
just.
Then why have
town.
a district?
No,
Guys,
the
everybody should
idea
have their
though,
own fire
It
department.
does give them the power to get the money. He's sending out bills now, he's getting $200 and never seen another dime. That's not fair either.
That's correct, but you haven't, has the board talked to your attorney to find out if there's a way that you can levy that, like the cities do, levy it on the tax bill?
We have
Because you're levying
done, we
you're
have
levying
done that
billing.
before, haven't we, Greg?
Yes, sir.
We have levied on tax bills in the past.
So maybe
Legally.
maybe you don't need to have the cities involved, and you can levy it yourself.
Why wouldn't you want to be involved if we're sending one of your residents a bill? Wouldn't you want to know that?
In the fire chief copies the cities on those cost recovery. But I don't want the zoning administrator or the city manager saying what the fire chief can or cannot do.
I mean,
That's-
somebody gets
that's-
stopped
that's-
for speeding or reckless driving, what does it have to do with the municipality? Frankly, I think it's none of their business.
The city doesn't run the fire department, the fire district does. We appoint members on that. To have the zoning administrator, the city manager, anybody at the city question the fire chief's judgment, I think is wrong. And it doesn't show a lot of respect for the fire chief, as far as I'm concerned.
What if the fire was a result of a zoning issue?
I don't understand, what does that
Like
mean?
it was approved and it shouldn't have been. Well, now it's on their shoulders.
Is all this
The
zoning-
piping at Daniel Drive, that was approved, right, by the township?
No,
No.
no, it's not.
Well, that's the,
There you go.
an iffy situation.
Iffy.
Iffy?
I have a question on the other, or like when you get pulled over and it's like somebody just mentioned, you get a speeding ticket, you don't have a choice. You get that $150 ticket or whatever it is because the cop said you were wrong and you have to pay it, or you go through the appeals process, which is going to court and challenging it with a judge. What would be the difference in how it is now? There already is an appeals process in place, but just changing it to this cost recovery review board or whatever you'd like to call it. Why can't the district bill the cost recovery in accordance with its in-house cost recovery committee, which, Chief doesn't, I don't think he's ever billed one on his own without asking some other people if they think it should be. For example, then the bill would go out if you send the appeal process, just like it says right on the bottom of your ticket from the cop. If you don't want to pay this fine, you can challenge it in this way, and this way. The first step would be to appeal it to the chief. The second step would be to appeal it to this cost recovery review board. But then it's still done as a district, the same throughout the district instead of different in one section, just as a suggestion.
Here's where the hiccup is right now, is basically, if he went and did a tax with township law, if he went and did a tax, let's say, tried to do a tax levy on a home, and let's say we reviewed it, or didn't review it, and the homeowner came in and said, what's this? We could remove it, because the township trumps fire department. That's why I think there needs to be a board of review, so there's all approval all the way around, somehow, some way.
Correct, and that's how most of these, like Chris was just saying, what you
Right,
have is
yeah,
you have-
saying that
you
there's
have an
a
appeal
appeal
board.
board.
And then if the party that has the bill doesn't get satisfaction to there, then they can go on to the district court. They don't go to the Saugatuck City Council or the township board to get recovery, and you don't, I don't
Well,
think
that's
you
why-
as an elected official want to have to.
No, but that's why we were saying though, even earlier when we said three different people, to do that
I agree.
small group would be great. And let them be the ones to make the decision.
But I think that at least the city of Saugatuck would be fine with it. To have that's what we talked about, that meeting with Scott Smith and the fire district's attorney, was that there was going to be an appeal board set up.
Right.
So that someone, when the fire department issued a cost recovery statement, if that party felt that wasn't appropriate, they could go to the appeal board and
Well,
seek
then they
relief.
say there was one at one time, they said, is what we were
There
told,
was,
right?
and they said they were going
Well,
to
I
reconstitute.
think we're talking about two different things. We're talking about appeals board for the fire code. the appeal process is very defined in the ordinance. Just nobody told anybody what the appeal process was in the ordinance. It's in there, but it's two different things. The appeal, we can have the same appeal board for IFC objections, and cost recovery, fine. But they're two different appeal boards originally.
Just as long as they're I don't, really doesn't matter what direction you go, as long as it's consistent. So everyone, citizens in the city of Saugatuck, and Saugatuck Township, and Douglas, all have the same exact process, are billed for the exact same
Same way.
expenditures, and treated equally because they are within that district. That is the key. As long as you can do that and you get the city's buy-in on that, you won't have any problems. And like I said, if you're going to be making decisions, I think it'd be good to have Douglas, the
Yeah.
administration of Douglas involved in their staff, as well as the city of Saugatuck, as well as the township.
Makes sense.
Because this really needs to be fair and equal across the district.
I think everybody understands that. That's what we all been just talking about.
Right, so, yes, so I think,
Makes sense.
So what I would propose, if I may, if you're working with your administrator, Chief Janik, is have the municipalities get together, and the administrators, and try to work out something, and what are the issues the township have on that, what concerns Douglas may have, and what concerns the city of Saugatuck, and see if they can come to an agreement, bring it back to you as the Township Fire District Board, and say all three entities can recommend this next step, this procedure moving forward.
Makes sense.
So where does that leave cost recovery, emergency response cost recovery? That's not what the proposed change to define cost recovery items.
Well,
What's
that's
your
what-
opinion as a city manager?
the three communities should
As long as
meet and
it's the
decide.
same,
You're saying the three communities have to have the same ordinance.
Yeah.
that would
They
be advisable, yes, and I think it's doable.
They should mirror.
They should mirror each other.
It's one district.
They do now, they're all the same now. So it would make sense to have them all the same.
So whatever definitions they just wrote, if you agree to them, then take them back to Douglas and Saugatuck, get them to adapt their definitions?
I
Is that
think
the
the
idea?
It's the
leaders,
process.
Greg, Bert, Bill, and Aaron should meet and decide what cost recovery will be for the district. And then
Talk about
recommend
some
to-
issues, talk about the issues that each, because obviously the township has some issues, and let's talk about them, see if they can get those resolved and have a consistent one ordinance that everyone can adopt. I'm not stuck on the ordinance that we've adopted, if there needs to be changes, and most importantly, though, I'm gonna be referring to the fire chief to see if there's issues. It's not so much with the city, if he feels there's issues or concerns that aren't gonna work, need to be addressed, then I think those should be paramount, we should take his advice, but as long as they're consistent and all the ordinances are the same, you're gonna do a big benefit to everyone in the district, I can tell you that.
Okay. Steve or John, this is on the planning commission agenda tonight.
No, just the private roads.
Just private roads.
So, Greg, just real quick, you're good with the private roads, you're good with the IFC changes as long as I omit the two sections. So those two, we're 2 out of 3, we're good.
And we got,
We can put the brakes on the cost recovery
that's what I
another
wanted to know.
another month, but we need to let's get this done. Let's get it done where all three municipalities have the same thing going, they all agree on it.
Well, we certainly have something we
But
can
the
start
first
with.
two things,
We
the
don't have
private
to-
roads tonight and the IFC, you're good with that, with the changes as
Yeah, as long as
amended,
we
let's say.
remove that
All right.
permit stipulation in the inspection process,
All right.
completely remove that.
Okay. I was just making sure.
I feel on the cost recovery as a township resident, if there is an issue in the township with the cost recovery, it should have been brought to Roy or Eric and then brought to the board and talked about and defined and brought together as a board, and then the board send that down to the township. Not the township telling the chief, this is what you're gonna do. And that's how I feel. You
Let
can
me
shake
try to
hands, but I
correct the
feel
record
that's
here,
what's
Greg.
happening.
Sure.
I'd like to correct that a little bit. This is going on now 6 months with discussions with Greg. Not that we're telling Greg what he has to do, but he disagreed with what we did as far as the approval of the zoning administrator, but we've worked on this thing jointly with
But I feel as
fire
if the
chief.
township shouldn't be telling Greg what to do. I feel the board should be together on one on this. And
This started off
Okay,
with
all right,
us,
all right.
people coming in and asking for discretion.
No,
That's
it's
what
a
it was
discussion.
originally.
Let them talk.
Yeah, I mean, I feel as if the fire board should be the one to define what the cost recovery is, not a township, and bring it all together. That's how I feel, that you guys, the township has hired or has the fire department working for them. You have a good fire board working amongst against yourselves. you
We'll
know?
work this out.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll work this out. All right, we got some strong, good heads here. Let's just kind of be rational on this and just remember the other guy on this. But we are a district, and people have to keep that in mind. No one city is gonna run this fire department as long as I am chief. It will not happen.
and we are supposed to serve unbiased for the district.
Right. But I am
It's in our
comfortable we
bylaws.
can work this out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just one thing about that is, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but in the past, we left it up to Greg, to cost recovery, and then he came to us and told us what he collected. We never made a decision. We made a decision on a fee sheet, and you know, we're all in good hands there. So that is the process.
All right. Moving on. Sorry. We have no new business, correspondence, we'll save for the next meeting. Although, wait, we do have some correspondence from, on this issue, and you handed them out, correct?
It was, yeah, pretty much, it was just, the concern I got from the group when they heard this was going on, they contacted me and said, I'm not going in the driveway, I don't want to dwell on this. They just made it real clear, we're not beating up our trucks. You guys understand that. And just a letter from the Daniel Drive people, not objecting and protesting the cost recovery, so I'm hoping I never hear that again.
Do you still want those two letters going to the planning commission tonight from Fenville chief and, yeah,
I mean, they can get them, but I'm not gonna dwell on it,
okay.
so.
So you'll be there tonight, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be there.
Well, I think you have, if they wrote you a letter, you have to include it in your packet.
I just didn't want to muddy the waters
Yeah,
anymore,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay, is there any
They are
public
letters to the
comment?
planning
Yeah.
commission.
Is there any public comment? Fire board
I-
comment?
oh, I think Eric just said it best, that the board hired the fire chief to do his job, but it does seem in a lot of ways that this is starting to come down as micromanagement in some ways from the township, and I just, I think we're all working great on, or we're starting to move forward in the right direction, hopefully after 6 months. And I agree, we need to stop kicking the can down the road, let's get this done and behind all of us so we can all do the jobs we were hired to do, which is protect and serve the citizens, so.
Yeah, we got 2 out of 3.
My comments, anybody else?
Make $1 million in baseball.
My comments are, I want to work this out. This has been very costly, and we need to get it done. And we need to do it fairly, and I think we are definitely on the right track in this meeting. I think we've advanced a great deal here, so.
Okay. Anybody else? Meeting's adjourned.